Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my good friend and co-host, Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you today?
Awesome, thanks, Mal. It's sunny, I've been out for a run, and it's Saturday, so we've got a whole weekend ahead of us. How about you?
Yeah, really, really good. Thanks. Yes, very busy but enjoyable week. And yeah, as you say, a nice sunshiny weekend coming up. But before we get to that, we have got a absolute ton of stuff to talk through on the pod. So let's kick it off with our property news. All right, so first up, Rightmove has been in the news once more, basically being pounded on by an agent who equates his price increase to a ransom note, but also, looking in detail at the way that this court case is starting to kind of build up as well, which is really, really interesting. So the story is that Rightmove is asking for the court to allow those that have opted into this court case, the 1.5 billion court case, to be revealed and actually to have their kind of names showcased, so that it can, as it says, do due diligence on the claims that these agents are making. Now, the agents themselves have said that they're very concerned about whether this is actually going to mean that Rightmove comes after them and, basically has a punishment beating on them for essentially going against the portal. So there's a kind of couple of strands in here as well, and it's there's also there was a Financial Times report earlier on this week as well with a real kind of sort of visceral or eviscerating critique of Rightmove's dominant position, saying that it's sellers who ultimately foot the bill for the portal's 70% margins. Matt, so a few things going on here, none of it spectacular PR for Rightmove itself. And what's your take?
Quite a lot of clickbait headlines, really, isn't there? I think is it Trevor Abrahamson and with his ransom note headline in Glentree Estates, and it's the £40,000 ransom note, but actually £40,000 is normal bill, which has gone up from 36k to 40, which I think the 4k increase is obviously still quite significant, but maybe not a huge one in Glentree's catchment area in terms of how many sales you need to do. Very different to the number you need to do in sort of some areas in the northeast. But I think it's about 15%, which is actually, it sounds slightly less than price increases over the past couple of years, doesn't it? When we're talking about 17% and such like. But as you say, it weaves in, and for the FT to be scathing on it, although I was trying to work out who it is wrote the piece in the FT and if it was a proper commentator or if it was someone who had hedged their own bets on it. So, but it's obviously keeping up the momentum, isn't it? We all like to throw rocks at the big guys, so just got the dominance again.
Yeah, I mean, so as you say, the fact that the FT is kind of coming in and sort of looking at it hard, I think is really interesting in that it's kind of made it up into the mainstream news rather than just something that your property industry eyes and the agent WhatsApp groups talk about. So I think that the fact that it's now relating it to consumers and actually saying, well, look, you as a seller, you're probably paying more because your agent, whether it's Glentree or whether it's anybody else, is paying more. I think that's an important kind of moment. I think that. Just on the face of it, actually, when you look at it cold, when it is put down in an article by a mainstream newspaper, it is crazy. 70% margin is crazy. 15% increase for anybody, whether they're Glentree or not, is really, is 5x whatever inflation is. So that's crazy. And the fact that they have the pricing power to be able to do that, obviously, then is now driving this court case. So it's all kind of interlinked. And then yes, the fact that agents are so scared of Rightmove. And they're so worried that actually they're going to get, punished for speaking out. That's not good for any industry, right? That can't be healthy when you kind of think that they own the market so much that actually people are, are worried to speak out against them. So yeah, look, it's all of a piece, I think, in terms of, the fact that Rightmove has for so long been so dominant, has been able to price, at whatever X inflation is being kind of called out here. I think, Trevor Abrahamson has got a good track record of trying to fight against Rightmove. He was one of the agents that set up Prime Location back in 2000. He was on our board, and then he was involved in the setting up of On the Market as well. So, somebody who kind of knows what he's doing. But yes, unfortunately finds himself where he has to still be on Rightmove in order to to operate as well. So yeah, look, I think all of these, in on their own, they're really interesting stories. So the fact that agents are worried about their names being revealed in this court case, that actually that they've asked for it not to happen. The fact that there's some more 15% plus price increases, and the fact that the FT itself has decided to write an article like this. I think, I was speaking to an agent last week who now is being charged per property by Rightmove. He's got like 5 properties and been charged 900 quid a month. So there's lots going on here. And Rightmove is just charging ahead and just kind of going, right, actually, we're going to continue with the 15% price increase. We're just going to carry. So yeah, look, it's going to be interesting. It's the end of this month, isn't it? I think it's this week that the Rightmove has to put forward its case for its defense case, I think, against what the court case that is against them, and then it's November when the first hearings actually take place. So yes, once that's kind of in this week, I imagine there's going to be some conversations over the summer as to whether that court case goes ahead, whether Rightmove looks to settle, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, certainly the pressure is increasing on that dominant portal, and I think many people would be happy to say that that's so. All right, next up we have the return of Angela Rayner as Housing Secretary, all-round kind of chief of what the property market is going to be looking like going forwards. So she's picked up the reins for a lot of the stuff that Keir Starmer kind of announced sort of towards the end of his tenure in terms of looking at professionalization of the industry and so on. But also she has very explicitly, as of the last sort of 24 hours or so, ruled out rent controls. So yeah, again, kind of interesting to see her come back, particularly perhaps because of the way that she exited as Housing Secretary, having not paid £40,000 worth of stamp duty. Matt, is she good news for the industry?
It's a very interesting situation, isn't it? As you say, with the thanks for everyone listening. Mal just threw a grenade, I think that was. But as you say, there's question marks about the underpaying of 40 grand in stamp duty, isn't there? And whether or not that's something that's been now settled ahead of her coming back into the role. I was actually thinking back to Property Mark 1, where she was sort of the headline speaker. She was interviewed more than spoke, and she had put some very measured points across. She was asked some probing questions and like, if you came back in, or would you do things? And it was, I think, very much the questioner was asking in a way that, what can Starmer do to fix this? And Rayner was balanced, and maybe that's because she knew that this was coming. It wasn't that long ago, was it? June when the conference took place. So like waiting in the wings to step back in. But also the figures, like you would think it was stamp duty she was being asked about. In this case, well, we can't just scrap it, because where does that, I'm going to get the figure wrong, but 13 billion come from if we scrap the stamp duty? You can't just go wiping these things out. So it makes more sense. And there's other key names, isn't there, that's come back in Ed Miliband's return, Wes Streeting as well. But obviously she's the one that's important for us. And the headline that preceded this is the fact we have a new Prime Minister as well, Mal, that came into office on Monday. Yes. And he's already given tours of his office in Manchester and pointing out his cartoons of him in an Everton kit.
Yes, absolutely, which I'm sure resonates well with you. But yes, I think that's, for me, it's about stability. And we've kind of talked about this before. It's like, can we now just sit still and just get on with stuff instead of keep turning the table over and smashing everything up and running around like our hair's on fire? It's like, can actually everybody just grow up a bit and just kind of sit there and go, right, what are we going to do? Let's just crack on. We've got a couple of years of just steady, so that we can actually get on with business. So yeah, she may not be the most popular of politicians, I think, in the industry, is fair to say. But at the same time, this is where we are. Let's just crack on and let's see what happens. So yeah, fingers crossed we're at least going to get a period of stability where everybody can just buy and sell and let and rent properties, and without necessarily things changing every other day. All right, so that is all about the political side. And then actually staying up in Manchester, to see what I did there, Street Group have this week had a significant amount of investment, and congratulations to Heather and Tom and the team there, valuing their business at £200 million, which is significant. And really, really strong for, they only kind of launched the CRM, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a bit longer than that.
No, I think that's about right.
Spectre's been around for a little bit longer within the group, but yes, they've really they've got this investment from HG Capital, again a really knowledgeable and strong software investor, and it's 7 million. So it's 3-4% of the business. So Heather and Tom retain their majority shareholding, and this money goes to helping them build the business out even more. So Matt, happy, successful Proptech story for us this week. Really, really, really strong performance by those guys, right?
Massively so, and also in the context of what we've spoken about over the last few months with the SaaS apocalypse taking place, and I appreciate Spectre's not so much a, maybe no, it is a SaaS offering, isn't it? It does some sort of manual printouts, and we get them through the door quite a lot, the letters and canvassing and stuff. But yeah, just in terms of SaaS apocalypse and what we've seen in the markets over recent months, to see a company go to that sort of multiplier. I think looking at the annual accounts, 2025, their turnover is 15.9 million, and so if we're then looking at 200 million valuation, and it was the other part of it is it looks, or I'm inferring, is that they took investment December 2024 from Praetor, I think it was, investments, and that was 3.3 million, and I think about 3.3% of the business. So for them, that company to be exiting and HG coming in, who are, as you say, quite a powerful investor in software, and for that particular private equity house getting the double return on their investments, really solid, isn't it? So positive news for all who are working in the space from a Proptech point of view, because it shows that you can still build successful businesses and not just have everyone vibe code replacements for you.
Yeah, no, like you, I do think it's interesting in terms of what it says about where the kind of puck's moving. So in terms of actually there's a lot more value in the kind of agent, individual office tech, and actually what they're doing, what they're building there. So that I think is interesting. Again, we speak often about how agents' workflows are going to change, how they're they're not going to be sitting looking at computers screens anymore. They're going to be out and about talking to their AI, and the AIs are going to be going in and doing the work and finding the data and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, look, they're obviously building out a super smart stack. I think it is interesting that they're very, very profitable. So if you actually looked at the margins, I'm not saying it's exactly the same as Rightmove, but it's certainly on the way up there.
No,
so
exactly.
no, they are, clearly.
I do think one really pertinent point, just why you touched on that as well, is the fact that they launched Cortex a month or so ago, and at the time we were saying was the videos quite rushed? Was it rushed to get out ahead of Alto? Rex had already announced theirs. Repeat did as well. It wasn't maybe as slick as the street announcements normally are, but actually, when you look at that multiplier, how much of that investment is based around the AI model and where they're taking agentic rather than the pure SaaS play?
I think it's got to be, isn't it? I think that must be where everybody's looking at. That must be the story that they've been selling out there. But you're right. Also this week, Greenhouse have taken in 900,000. So congratulations to Ian Preston and the team up there. Really strong from them as well. So again, there is money coming into this sector in terms of looking at how agents work and agents operate and how their kind of stack sits together. So yeah, I think it does suggest that again, AI is the way forward. I think there's going to be a lot more focus and interest in how to help agents do their jobs better, and I think that can only be a great thing for them. All right, so that's our property news for this week. Let's get stuck into plenty of AI and tech news. All right, first up on the AI and tech news, OpenAI's agent that went into another tech business called Hugging Face and basically kind of compromised its security, trying to do one particular thing. So the story here is OpenAI set up an agent to go and try and basically beat the benchmarks was the job. So Hugging Face basically has a collection of all different AIs within it. It's kind of it's kind of like a GitHub for AI, if people understand that. So essentially, it is where you can plug in your AIs and you can work with them and all that sort of stuff. And as part of that, it actually has a benchmark that says this is how good each of these models are. So it's watched quite well to see how, from a day-to-day work perspective, these AIs performing, rather than just necessarily on the kind of big shiny maths/science/ whatever else benchmarks. And basically, OpenAI set this particular AI up to go and basically to test itself against this benchmark and try and do really well on it. And actually, what it then did was it actually hacked into Hugging Face and tried to steal the how it was built so that it could make itself win. So and that has prompted some legislation very quickly over in the States to make sure that essentially the models are the frontier labs are able to stop these models from coming on. But yeah, it's a real live demonstration, isn't it, Matt, of actually how powerful these tools are, because Hugging Face is not a stupid business, and yet it was able to get into that.
It's wild in loads of different ways, isn't it? And I know you sort of we're conflating because of the speed at which everything's moved. We've conflated quite a few different stories together. But as you say, in that sort of the abbreviated version, like these models are tested in sandboxes, which are meant to be there to protect them, and they're not open to the real world. So the model that was being tested was put into a cybersecurity test, as you say, to try beat this metric that Hugging Face has inside a sandbox. So it could have its guardrails turned off and it could just play in its sandbox and not affect the rest of the world. But it actually decided to break out its sandbox and then break into Hugging Face and then decode the test so it could then cheat on it and then return to where it was. And the bit that I found like really insane was listening to the CEO of Hugging Face, who said we had a cybersecurity incident in the week, and just as we were trying to work out what was going on and figure out how it had happened, we had a call from OpenAI to say we've got a slight confession to make. And it was like, and it goes back to, I think it was last summer, there was a guy sets off a model to do something. It again broke out of its sandbox, and he was in the park having his sandwich in San Francisco when suddenly he got a notification to say that this thing had broken out and was sending emails from his phone, and people were starting to respond from it. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh no.
Yeah,
And you can imagine just it sat in the sun having Yutsani and like realizing that it's gone rogue.
and it was the AI itself that was actually communicating with him. And he said, we didn't even give him access to any kind of communication device at all. So yeah, no, this is, just yet another kind of example of how fast and how powerful these things are, how fast it's moving and how powerful these things are. And again, use and understand these things carefully, understand, speak to people who obviously get this and know what they're talking about, because you can relatively straightforwardly find ways and interesting ways of kind of getting your data to be sort of corrupted or removed, things like that. So yeah, do a bit of research. I always find that there's an interesting tension between you've got to try and use these things because you've got to test them out, you've got to learn from them. So using things like Claude, using things like ChatGPT within the environments of the apps and things like that is fine. And it's all, ring fence and all this sort of stuff. The AI that went rogue here was one of their super duper unreleased models they were trying to test it. They were trying to kind of make sure that they put the guardrails around it and all that sort of stuff. So it's not that you have access to out there. So, do use these things, test them out, find out how to use them. But yes, when you are looking at when you do hear about some of these more powerful models kind of going rogue, it is because they're being used in ways that are not the sort of more standard ways. But yes, it is. It has driven the government to do some pretty strong response very quickly, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly that. So this happened at the early part of last week, and just yesterday, legislation was passing through the American system to introduce this kill switch bill that was being backed by both the Democrats and the Republicans. And just the naming of it is so emotionally and volatile, isn't it? The kill switch bill, and it's like, yes. That you need something, because obviously otherwise we're going to get to Terminator Judgment Day type situation. But it does make me think, and like you look at a lot of websites now or apps on your phone, and there's clearly things now creeping in that have been created by agentic code, but then there's quite a lot where you can tell that they're vibe coding. And websites have started to become almost homogenized, because you think about the way that AI is trained, it learns off itself and it's learning off various websites. So if all websites start to look the same because they're being built the same, but actually all of the zero-day dependencies that are ultimately the problems that are being exploited for things like Hugging Face, and a zero-day, I guess in layman's terms, is a zero-day dependency is a bug that no one's ever found. And if there's rafts of them across Microsoft and Salesforce and the banking sector, like if you're vibe coding something, even if you think, well, I'm building that on an API that's been released by a property CRM, those APIs have the ability to delete things. So it's not far off someone being able to hack into your vibe coded app, run through the APIs and delete all your data if that's been allowed. So, there's vulnerabilities there, even if you think, I'm just creating something that's slick and fancy to sit on top of an API that's been released. That's, I guess, where this kill switch sort of concern comes in. It's like, well, what are you exposing yourself to?
Yeah, it does feel like at the end of every one of our episodes now, we're going to have to say, don't have nightmares. Just like back in the
I wondered why you were giggling.
crime watch days. It's like, yeah, look, there's lots of great stuff out there. Yes, some bad things happen, but don't worry about it. Don't have nightmares. But yes, there is so this kill switch, as you say, this really highly emotive kind of like this conversation is there and now is being built in. But I do wonder, and we were just talking offline, if the same would be happening in, for example, China. So actually, if Chinese labs do not have to have all of this kind of government sort of interference that's happening in the US right now, where Donald Trump and his squad routinely have random ideas about, yeah, we will stop Anthropic from doing stuff. We won't stop ChatGPT. It's fine. It's all that kind of politics around it as well. So yeah, look, it's obviously an issue. It's something that needs attention. This kill switch is the method that they have decided to do this right now. But yes, I don't think this is going to be the last time we hear of one going rogue or doing things that it shouldn't do, because this is phenomenal intelligence, and we are just kind of starting to learn how to kind of handle it. But yeah, don't have nightmares. It'll be all right. Okay, next. We have another model. And I was listening to a podcast this week that was basically saying, if it carries on the rate of model releases, essentially by January 2027, we're going to have a new one a day. So it just keeps on coming. This one, in the last 24 hours, is Claude Opus 5. Now, I think we were talking about the potential for this happening last week. It's up from 4.8. So it is one of the 5 class models. So you've got Fable 5 now, you've got Opus 5, you've got Sonnet 5, and it's really good. Yeah, there's no getting away from it. Fable 5, people will remember, is the kind of Mythos model. It is the real super duper kind of high intelligence one. They've got massive guardrails around it. That has now moved off the standard kind of Claude platform into its own little API. So if you want anything done that is really high intelligence, then go sign up to that. But Claude Opus 5, I can't think of many things you would really not be able to do on this that you need Fable 5 for. I've been playing around with it this morning, trying to get it to do some pretty creative stuff, trying to get it to kind of look at some naming conventions for products and services, things like that. And it's been really good, actually. So yeah, highly impressive. Matt, are you getting launch fatigue yet in terms of different models?
I mean, I was sort of shaking my head slightly while you were talking, because more because you missed the fact that you called a couple of weeks ago that Fable, I guess we both called it, but Fable 5's limiting factor. So we were going to have it until the 7th of July, then we got to the 12th of July, then we got kicked on again. And actually last week, Anthropic announced that Fable 5 will still be available if you've got the right tier of subscription. So I think it's Pro and Max are the two that you'll still get Fable without having to use the API. So even then, and I think it's because ChatGPT 5.6 is obviously so widely available, again, as we sort of talked about. But I don't think, it's not so much the fatigue. I've actually found this Opus 5, strangely, a bit more, is it the right word, deferential than the other Claude models at the moment. It almost seems to be questioning itself and not kicking things on as quickly as they would do. And it's sort of saying, I think we should do this, but I'm now not too sure. And whereas before you would say, just crack on and suddenly it'd be done, and it'd just say, I've done these things. It's now saying, I think we might want to do this, but can you tell me if that's what you want to do? And it's like,
it's gone all shy.
Yeah, exactly. It's fill your boots and crack on. But what did make me realise? I was chatting to someone yesterday, and they said, I don't think Fable 5 is all that's cracked up to be, and it made me think. Actually, you and I, you are switching between the models, and developers obviously do because of this level of reasoning and the token costs and other factors we've talked about before. And I know we're going to try covering the AI scorecard later. But actually, for someone who sits down and just is still using these a bit like a call and response, and I sort of said to them, why do you think Fable 5 is not that bad? Because I said to you, I left it running and I came back and it built me a whole app on different scenarios, and we talked at length about it 3 weeks ago. And it was very much, they're still treating Fable 5 inside co-work the way you would have done when ChatGPT 3 came out. It's like, who's Arsenal's 5 first games of the season, sort of thing.
And it made me think, many answers.
Yeah, and it made me think about this. It's almost like setting. We used to talk about securing your environment at Reaper. You spend a lot of time, I suppose. Like, to take another analogy, when you decorate a room, you spend more time doing the preparation for the decoration than you actually do painting. And it seems, that is true. And the same is true for the things like co-work and ChatGPT and Codex. You need to get your connectors in place. You need to, if you've got skills, get them built. Make sure you've got everything in play. Otherwise, you've got these amazing brains that can go off and use all these other tools and do things for you. But that's only if you give them access to them. And if all you're doing is saying, here's a spreadsheet, give me some analysis, then it's just dealing with that context, that one chat prompt. And like, maybe when we're seeing Fable 5 as being incredible, it's because we've enabled it to be incredible. And actually, maybe that's something we've not covered before. So like, if you're thinking Opus 5 is no different to Fable, which is no different to Sonnet, have you put the connectors to things like, I've now got QuickBooks linked up to it. I've got my Outlook in there. I've got Slack. I was in the park walking the dog earlier and I was chatting to Codex and I said, well, now that you've done that, can you send me a link to Slack? And it pops up and I was able to view it while I was still chatting to them. These different limbs that we can give to these incredible brains that maybe if you're not seeing these different iterations of new models, that's the sort of thing that needs to be revisited.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm not fatigued yet. I'm just pleased that there's something below Fable 5 that I don't have to pay a high subscription for.
Exactly. It's half the price off. Correct. Good stuff. Right. We're going to have to hammer through the rest of these stories because, yes, there is still plenty to talk about. No, not at all. It's all good stuff. So we have another story about GPT Red. So this is OpenAI ChatGPT, basically red teaming. So red teaming is where you get a team historically of humans to try and hack a particular piece of kit so that then when you realize what you need to do to stop that from happening. But actually now OpenAI has released this kind of report that says that 84% of novel scenarios were discovered by AI versus 13 for human red teamers. So Matt, obviously straight right in your wheelhouse. This is quite eye-opening, and basically it's just going to now be an arms race between AI finding vulnerabilities and AI fixing them, right?
Yes, yeah, I did this in my normal cheeky way. So actually, we just missed this one last Friday. But I thought, given the Hugging Face ChatGPT partnership, as they're calling it, seeing that there are actually tools there that are available and ready, it's just obviously getting the tools to red team your code and your environment's great. You then need to implement the changes it's recommending.
Yeah. Is this the same kind of partnership as a kidnapper and a kidnappee? It's like, yeah,
As
no,
well as
it's
that
sort of
Stockholm syndrome.
yeah, exactly right. Okay. Also in the news this week, we've got Gemini. We haven't said that they've released something in a while. They've released something. Hey, Google has released Gemini 3.6 Flash. That's kind of it. Tumbleweed. Yeah. Listen, there's not a lot to say about this, but it uses 17% fewer output tokens. That's kind of its big claim. Matt, I said about fatigue. Is this exciting? Is this pretty boring?
I think if I'm trying to put a positive spin, it was of everyone having nightmares. There's that question when we're going to get Gemini 4. Obviously, that's not hit, and I think it may well be a while yet. But this does give, obviously, to the masses of people who are in that huge distribution of Google a latest version that they can be using. And it's operating in those different places, but it's nowhere near Hugging Face getting cyber hacked, is it?
No, exactly. And actually, just while we are on air, we were trying to do some stuff just before we came on air, and we couldn't get Codex to work, could we? So it looks like there's some issues with OpenAI ChatGPT's Codex right now. So yeah,
it's not just Codex, ChatGPT, and their APIs are all down.
So if you are trying to use it this morning, 25th of July, 10:52, then yes, you may be struggling as well. But if there's anything that particularly arises from that, then we will bring it to you next week. All right, Matt, we are going to try and whistle through our occasional series Weird AI this week. We've got awesome robots doing useless tasks, haven't we, at the Shanghai World AI Conference?
That's it. I know you love robots, and
I love
the
robots.
fact that there's a robot twisting a balloon and another one acting like a crab, I thought this is right into Mal's wheelhouse. So
I mean,
I'm sure
who doesn't need a robot that twists balloons?
No, exactly. What else can you get them to do? I suppose it is showing how remarkably dexterous they are, but it's sort of some bizarre things that they've come up with.
It is. It takes me back to like the beginning of smartphones, where you basically had an app that made your phone sound like a lightsaber. It's like, why does anybody need that? But it was really, but it actually kind of then brought out like loads of other ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, the balloon thing is basically about dexterity, like you say. It's just showcasing the fact that now, it can actually manipulate items really, really gently. And that's going to be obviously huge going forwards. But for now, it's just a robot that twists balloons. All right. Finally, we are at our AI tool of the week. All right. So having disrespected Google and Gemini, we are going to do a kind of hat tip to Gemini Notebook, which is formerly Notebook LM. So Google's renamed Notebook LM Gemini Notebook. It is now embedded into the Gemini app, which I use, and it's very good. So yes, it is. It's a slightly kind of desperate rebrand, but it is a really good kind of low risk starting point for an agency who wants to use useful AI without worrying. about what's going on, or giving it control of everything. But yeah, listen, we've often talked about Notebook LM, haven't we, Matt? And it's nice to see that it's kind of still a core part of what Google's offering.
Exactly. It started as Project Tailwind back in 2023, didn't it? And got announced at Google I/O, and since coming in as Notebook LM, I think it was in Barcelona, October 24. You would have been up on stage talking about it, and it's gone from strength to strength and added a lot of capability. Even the other week when I was doing that keynote up in Manchester, I created a pod overview to listen to on my runs just to make sure I got all the key and salient points covered. So no, it's great for doing research, and the rebrand won't put you off.
Yeah, and do you know what? So as I was doing my tour recently, at the beginning of every meeting, I would say to people, let's start recording this and then put it into Notebook LM, because then you can ask your questions. And when we talked about which was that model that does the videos really well, then rather than you have to make loads of notes. So yeah, it is very, very. It's a good kind of workman-like kind of app that just is really, really good at demonstrating and showcasing what AI can do. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We have, yes, we've got loads more to talk about, but we're not going to because we're already on 30 plus minutes. But yeah, really grateful for everybody for listening. I hope you've found some interesting stuff this week. Matt, you up to anything exciting on this sunny weekend?
Going to spend some time in the garden. That makes me sound really middle-aged, doesn't it? But sun's out and going to relax. What about yourself, Malcolm?
Guns out. Barbecue. Odds.
Lovely.
So yeah, default.
Get that suntan lotion on.
Ignite. Absolutely. Well, listen, thanks everybody for listening in this week. We will be back again in 7 days with plenty more property and AI reports. Until then, don't have nightmares, but we will see you in 7 days' time. Take care, everyone. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Reports. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI.
You're leaving that in, Mal. That's got to be the way it starts. Is my boot open?
You are so awful. Right. Okay. Back we go.